Be the wolf among the sheep, Machiavel. How to dominate when surrounded by the weak. We often think of power as something that belongs to the ruthless, but what if the most misunderstood man in history wasn't a villain, but a mirror? This video takes you beyond the reputation of Machiavelli, uncovering the real man behind the mask. Was he a manipulator or just brutally honest about the way the world works? Through vivid stories of political betrayal, inner conflict, and survival, we explore how Machiavelli's insights are still shaping leaders and ordinary people alike. You'll discover why his lessons on fear, virtue, and control are more relevant now than ever, especially in an age of illusion and image. Stay with us until the end, because what you'll learn might just change how you see power, people, and yourself. This is not just a history lesson. It's a psychological awakening. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The legend of Machiavelli, a genius cursed by history. Few names in history evoke as much suspicion and unease as Niccolò Machiavelli. For centuries, his image has been entangled with deceit, manipulation, and cold-blooded politics. To be called Machiavellian is to be likened to a master of cruelty, someone who plots in shadows and smiles only to conceal a blade. But who was he really? Was he the embodiment of evil? Or was he simply bold enough to articulate truths the world would rather ignore? Machiavelli lived in a time of deep political turmoil. The Italian city-states were fragile, shifting alliances and betraying one another like leaves in the wind. Florence, his birthplace, wore the mask of a republic, but behind the facade, it was ruled by private interests in brutal power struggles. He observed this world not with naive idealism, but with clear, often disturbing insight. His most infamous work, The Prince, is often misread. People focus on his advocacy of deception and fear forgetting. It was written by a man exiled, tortured, and desperate to regain relevance. What if The Prince was not a celebration of tyranny, but a desperate survival guide? A mirror held up to power's ugliest truths. In facing Machiavelli, we confront ourselves. How much do we truly value honesty when survival is at stake? How do we reconcile the urge to be good with the need to be strong? Perhaps this is why he still unsettles us. He speaks in the voice we all try to silence. The voice that whispers not how the world should be, but how it is. Chaotic Florence and the birth of a great mind. Florence in the late 15th century was not the romantic cradle of art and thought we often imagine. Beneath the beauty of its cathedrals and sculptures, it was a city torn by shifting power, corrupt alliances, and the ever-present threat of violence. It was into this world that Niccolò Machiavelli was born in 1469. His upbringing would shape not only his political views, but also his understanding of human nature in its rawest form. Though Machiavelli's family belonged to the nobility, they had little real wealth. His father, Bernardo, was a failed lawyer, often unemployed, yet deeply immersed in classical literature and humanist thought. His mother, a devout woman, wrote religious hymns. From them, Machiavelli inherited a dual legacy: skepticism and spirituality, both of which he would wrestle with for the rest of his life. The Florence of Machiavelli's youth claimed to be a republic. In theory, it was ruled by rotating officials chosen by lottery, a design meant to prevent tyranny. In practice, it was a fragile game, easily manipulated by the powerful Medici family who pulled strings behind the scenes. Young Machiavelli watched this illusion unravel. He saw how noble ideals were twisted into tools for control, how public virtue could be faked for private gain. At just 9 years old, he witnessed the public execution of conspirators against the Medici, their bodies left hanging upside down for days. Such images do not fade easily. They imprint themselves not only on memory but on soul. Florence taught Machiavelli early that beauty and cruelty often coexist, and in this paradox, the seeds of his philosophy began to take root. The Prince, a survival manual for those in power, written in exile after his fall from political grace. The Prince was not born from triumph but from desperation. Machiavelli had been tortured, imprisoned, and cast aside. With his political career in ruins, he turned to writing. The Prince was his offering to Lorenzo de' Medici, a calculated attempt to regain favor and perhaps return to public service. But what he gave the world instead was a blueprint of power that would echo for centuries. The Prince does not teach virtue. It teaches control. It does not ask a ruler to be good, only to appear good. To Machiavelli, the stability of the state mattered more than the moral purity of its leader. If lies, fear, or even cruelty were required to hold a nation together, then so be it. The ideal ruler was not the most ethical, but the most effective. This idea was revolutionary. For centuries, Western political thought was deeply tied to Christian ethics. Good rulers were supposed to be compassionate, honest, and just. Machiavelli shattered this illusion. He argued that those values, while noble in private life, were dangerous in public affairs. A leader who tried to rule by idealism would be destroyed by those who did not. The prince strips away illusions. It does not describe the world as it should be, but as it is. Some called it evil. Others called it realistic. But perhaps what unsettled readers most was the mirror it held up to themselves. If we were in power, would we choose virtue or survival, to be feared or to be loved? The survival rule of leadership. Among the many questions raised in The Prince, one stands out for its brutal clarity. Is it better for a ruler to be loved or feared? Machiavelli's answer is unsettling. While both are desirable, he argues it is far safer to be feared. Love, he explains, is fragile. It depends on gratitude, loyalty, and emotion. All things easily broken. Fear, on the other hand, is rooted in control, and control sustains power. This does not mean Machiavelli advocated cruelty for its own sake. He warned that hatred must always be avoided. Fear, when applied wisely, is a tool, but hatred breeds rebellion. The ideal ruler, therefore, must be careful. Violence, if necessary, should be swift, effective, and not repeated. A leader must inspire respect, not provoke vengeance. Machiavelli observed that humans are inconsistent, selfish, and often dishonest. Relying on their love, he believed, was dangerous. But controlling their behavior through fear could bring stability. In this view, morality becomes a luxury that leaders cannot always afford. Yet this idea reveals a deeper conflict. It raises a question we still face today. Can authority exist without manipulation? Can strength coexist with compassion? Machiavelli's logic may offer security, but it denies the deeper human need for connection and trust. Behind every fear-based rule lies a people waiting, perhaps hoping, for someone to lead not through fear, but through meaning. Morality, or a mask? The truth behind the art of ruling. In The Prince, Machiavelli introduces a concept both provocative and eerily familiar. He suggests that a ruler does not need to be moral. It is enough to appear moral. Compassion, honesty, generosity. These are not virtues a leader must possess, only roles to be performed. The crowd, he says, judges by appearances, not intentions. They do not see the backroom deals or the strategic betrayals. They see what they are shown. This idea blurs the line between integrity and illusion. It implies that public virtue can be faked and that leadership is as much about performance as it is about governance. For Machiavelli, politics is theater. The mask matters more than the face. A leader must play the role the people want while secretly doing what power demands. This challenges our deepest assumptions. We want to believe that good leaders are good people. But Machiavelli forces us to ask, what if goodness gets in the way? What if survival requires deception? He does not celebrate lies, but he refuses to condemn them when they serve a purpose. In his view, the ends justify the means, especially when the stakes are the survival of a state. And yet behind this cold logic lies a haunting question. Can someone pretend to be good for too long without forgetting how to be good at all? When virtue becomes a mask, what happens to the face beneath? Machiavelli's world rewards performance, but it leaves the soul hungry. And perhaps that is the true cost of power built on illusion. Vert and fortuna, mastering oneself or surrendering to fate. Central to Machiavelli's philosophy are two powerful forces, vert and fortuna. They are not simply abstract ideas, but living principles that define success and failure. Vert represents a person's strength, intelligence, courage, and adaptability, the qualities needed to shape events rather than be shaped by them. Fortuna, by contrast, symbolizes chance, chaos, and the unpredictable nature of life. It is the storm we do not see coming, the river that overflows and washes away everything we built. Machiavelli believed that fortune governs half of our lives, while the other half is within our control. Vert, then, is the weapon we wield against the unknown. It is not goodness in the moral sense, but the force of will that dares to act when others hesitate. The leader who possesses vert does not merely react to fate. He prepares, adapts, and sometimes bends fate to his will. To explain this, Machiavelli used the metaphor of a river. When it floods, it destroys. But with preparation, building dams, reinforcing banks, its damage can be limited. Similarly, in life and politics, those with foresight and resolve can withstand misfortune. Those without are left to drown. This idea speaks not only to rulers, but to us all. In a world filled with uncertainty, we too are called to cultivate our own vert, to build inner strength, to act decisively, and to live as architects of our future rather than victims of fate. Machiavelli challenges us to master ourselves before we dare to master the world. Good and evil within us, the truth. Machiavelli never denied. Machiavelli did not believe in idealized versions of humanity. He did not see people as naturally good or bad, but as driven by self-interest, capable of both generosity and cruelty, depending on circumstances. To him, morality was not a fixed compass, but a tool that could be used or ignored when power was at stake. This perspective unsettles many, but it is also deeply honest. Machiavelli did not deny human potential. He simply refused to romanticize it. In his writings, there is a clear acknowledgement of the darker side of human nature. People lie, betray, and manipulate, not always out of malice, but often out of fear or desire. Machiavelli believed that rulers, and indeed all people, must learn to navigate this truth. Denying it leads to naivety. Embracing it with awareness can lead to wisdom. This idea aligns with what modern psychology would later describe as the shadow, the unconscious part of ourselves that holds repressed instincts, impulses, and desires. Carl Jung believed that only by confronting this inner darkness could one achieve true integration and strength. Machiavelli, centuries earlier, had already sensed the same. He urged leaders to be both lion and fox, to have strength and cunning. But this is not limited to politics. It is a call to all of us to recognize our contradictions, to stop denying the parts of ourselves we fear. Strength does not lie in appearing pure. It lies in knowing who we really are and choosing what to do with that knowledge. A failed political career and the price of an idea. Despite his sharp intellect and deep understanding of power, Machiavelli never achieved lasting political success. For over a decade, he served as a diplomat and advisor in the Florentine Republic. But when the Medici family returned to power, he was cast out. Accused of conspiracy, he was imprisoned and tortured, then exiled from public life. His attempts to return to politics failed. The very ideas he expressed in The Prince may have made him too dangerous to trust. This irony is profound. Machiavelli, who wrote so clearly about gaining and maintaining power, could not hold on to it himself. His genius, instead of elevating him, isolated him. By exposing the mechanics of politics too honestly, he became unwelcome in the very world he understood best. In exile, he turned to writing, not out of freedom but necessity. The Prince was not written from a throne, but from a place of rejection. It was both a gift to the powerful and a cry for relevance. But even this gift was ignored. Lorenzo de' Medici, to whom the book was dedicated, never acknowledged it. Machiavelli's insight, while brilliant, became a burden he had to carry alone. There is a quiet tragedy in his life. He saw clearly how power worked, yet could not wield it. He dreamed of return, but found himself pushed to the margins. His fate reminds us that those who reveal uncomfortable truths are often cast aside, and that sometimes the price of vision is exile. The legacy of Machiavelli, a great misunderstanding of history. After his death, Machiavelli's name became a symbol of evil. His work was banned by the church, and his ideas were condemned as immoral. The term Machiavellian came to describe cold manipulation, deceit, and ruthless ambition. But this image of Machiavelli is not entirely fair. It is a shadow cast by centuries of fear and misinterpretation. His most infamous book, The Prince, was never meant to promote cruelty. It was a reflection of the brutal reality of politics during his time. Machiavelli did not invent manipulation or treachery. He simply described them. He exposed how power truly works without dressing it in noble language. That honesty made him dangerous. In the chaos of Europe's religious wars, Machiavelli's name was used to justify violence. Leaders claimed to follow his teachings while committing atrocities. This distorted his legacy. People stopped reading his actual words and began fearing the idea of him. His true message, full of realism and complexity, was reduced to a caricature. Yet his writings endured. Over time, scholars and thinkers returned to his texts with fresh eyes. They discovered not a devil, but a man wrestling with difficult truths. His honesty about human nature and politics continues to challenge us. If we look past the myth, we find a thinker who saw the world clearly and dared to speak without illusion. Machiavelli today. Today, a mirror reflecting brutal realities. Centuries after his death, Machiavelli remains deeply relevant. In modern politics, his insights echo in every carefully crafted speech, every public image designed to inspire trust while hiding deeper motives. Today's leaders, knowingly or not, often follow principles he described, projecting virtue, concealing intent, and prioritizing control over morality. But Machiavelli's relevance goes beyond politics. His work forces us to confront the gap between appearance and reality, between how things are and how we wish they were. In a world driven by perception, image often matters more than truth. Machiavelli understood this long before the age of media and branding. He reminds us that behind every public figure is a strategy, and behind every strategy is a fear, the fear of losing power. Yet we must ask, is this the only way? Do we accept that manipulation is necessary, that ideals are naive? Or is there room for another kind of strength, one grounded not in fear but in integrity? Machiavelli held a mirror to the harshest truths of human behavior. That mirror still stands. It shows us not just the world of politics, but the dynamics of power in everyday life. It reveals how easily trust can be shaped, how fragile truth can become, and how power continues to seduce even the most well-meaning among us. Whether we embrace or reject his teachings, Machiavelli challenges us to look honestly at the world and at ourselves. The invisible wounds of a brilliant mind. Machiavelli's life was marked by both intellectual brilliance and personal tragedy. He was a man who understood power, human nature, and the intricacies of statecraft like few others. Yet despite his vast knowledge, he never managed to wield power in the way he had hoped. His intellectual pursuits, instead of elevating him, often isolated him. He found himself on the outside, a man with deep insights into the workings of the world, but without the means to act on them. In exile, Machiavelli turned inward. His political career was shattered, but his mind remained sharp. He continued to write, but his works, particularly The Prince, were born of loss. They were not just the musings of an ambitious man. They were the reflections of someone who had been pushed to the margins. The price of his vision was his position in the world, and the wounds he carried were invisible to most. Despite his genius, Machiavelli lived in a constant state of conflict between what he knew and what he could do. This internal struggle is evident in his writings, where he describes the brutal realities of power and politics, while at the same time he expresses a deep longing for a world governed by reason and fairness. His works are a testament to this contradiction, the tension between the wisdom he had and the helplessness he felt in applying it. In many ways, Machiavelli's greatest contribution is not the ideas he proposed, but the vulnerability he displayed. He was not a detached philosopher unaffected by the world around him. His work reflects the pain of a man who saw too clearly and was punished for it. He reminds us that great minds are often burdened with the weight of their own insights, and the cost of seeing the world for what it truly is can be the loss of one's place in it. Awakening in a world that refuses to be what it should. Machiavelli's legacy is one of uncomfortable truths. His work exposes the deep flaws of human nature and the political systems we create. He does not ask us to accept the world as it should be, but rather as it is. And this is the essence of his challenge to awaken from the illusion of idealism and see the world with clear, unflinching eyes. In his view, there is no utopia. There is no perfect world governed by justice and fairness. The world, he believes, is full of contradictions, and the pursuit of power is one of the most significant. Leaders, he argues, must navigate these contradictions carefully. They must be willing to do what is necessary even when it goes against conventional morality, and they must do so not out of malice but out of necessity, because the world does not wait for them to act with virtue. But Machiavelli's realism also carries a deeper message. It reminds us that we too are part of this imperfect world. We are not immune to the flaws and contradictions that define it. The question then is not whether we can change the world, but how we respond to it. Can we navigate the complexities of life without losing our integrity? Can we accept that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in striving for a perfect world, but in accepting the world we live in and finding our way through it? Machiavelli did not give us easy answers, but he gave us a map. It is up to us to decide whether we want to follow it and what we will make of the journey. In the end, Machiavelli's insights into power, human nature, and leadership remain as relevant today as they were centuries ago. He challenged us to confront uncomfortable truths and see the world not as we wish it were, but as it truly is. His writings, while often unsettling, encourage us to understand the complexities of life, embrace our contradictions, and navigate the world with both wisdom and resilience. The journey through his work may not provide easy answers, but it offers the clarity we need to face the challenges ahead.